Games, board games. I might be talking about board games, but I'm not gonna shout. Sometimes people only care about who won. And in those situations, what will be done? Well, I'm going to say you should have a ponder whether one person's behavior will ruin the game for everybody else. Make sure that your game is in good health. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. is UK time. Time for Bezzy Beats and Board Game Blether. And today's episode, more based on aimed at designers or people interested in designing games. And I think we want to ask, well, I want to ask, how easily can people ruin your game? Think about it. I mean, don't think about someone, just saying, well, the rules don't stop me from punching you in the face. I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm not talking about that extreme. I'm not even talking, I guess there's sorts of 3 levels to it. Level 1, people say, okay, this is what the game seems to be making me do. Okay, I'll do that. Level 2, which is where I currently live, is, okay, when I play the game, I want to know how I get my points. How do I win? I want to do whatever will maximize my chances of winning. And hopefully the designer has aligned the fun. I mean, Gil Hova all the time talks about good game design is incentivizing fun behavior. And I think that's so true. It is the key. Whatever the fun behavior is, you need to reward that with points. I mean, if something is boring, but it makes you win, you can't blame the players when they do the boring thing. You should have designed the game differently. And then the 3rd level is someone just doing something that doesn't stop them, that doesn't help them win, but is just being a jerk. And here I'm talking about, doing an action just to spite the person to their left, to make sure that the person to their left can never win. Something like that. And that last category, there's a question of whether you should, how much, ponder it, think about it a little bit, but obviously that's not so much of an issue. But when people play the game, you expect them to play to win, or do you? And that's where I think we want to talk about social rules versus written rules. But first of all, let's talk about recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights. Recent highlights, I had an Indian takeaway. It was £14, but got like poppadoms and a curry and like a really nice set of starters with a vegetable curry, and then samosas and stuff. It wasn't a great, like, you couldn't have it if you were vegan. There was a lot of meat stuff, but it was delicious. I also did a bit of wandering around, watching Netflix. That was basically my day, wandering around, checking out Buzzing Meeples even though it was closed. It was a decent day. Wandering through the takeaways of this new area and pondering what to eat. And I'm very delighted with my choice. Still got a wee bit of poppadom. Let's talk about brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? I'm going to say that empathy. That's what we're talking about today. It's empathy. It's consideration for what other people will do, what drives other people. That's the key point. What drives you? When you're playing a game, what is your desire? Is your desire to win? Is your desire to spend the least amount of thought so that you can return to your conversation? Is your desire to show off a really cool move that you did and say, hey, look, I'm not going to win, but look at this one moment. Everyone, please. Spending 1 wood to trigger this one, which then gets my farmer, and then you want to just show off your really cool engine, but empathy, understanding what drives people, that is the brilliant thing. And so, yes, as always, feel free to comment, ask questions, and fun like follow. And hello, J Foles Guards, as always, it is lovely to see you, and I hope that you're generally well. And yes, I absolutely enjoyed the curry. I want to say that I've not seen this in London, but they had both the Indians that I went to had a mixed special. So normally you can only get lamb or prawns or chicken, and then this one is no, we give you the chicken tikka and the lamb and the prawns all in one curry chicken special patty. Anyway, it was good. But yes, let's crack on to the main topic and get that banner back up. So, how easily can people ruin the game? Someone put it to me a while back and where I said, all things being equal, look, I'm not saying every game has to be robust. Sometimes there are some experiences, especially when you're role playing, whatever the thing, whatever the reason, some experiences are brilliant, and to make them more robust would take away from the spark. And that's the key thing. I'm not saying a game that is not robust is terrible. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying a game that is not robust, that could have been robust, that without taking away from the game's spark, that is failed development fundamentally. That is what I'm saying. So on Facebook, someone said to me, oh, every game can be ruined by other people. To which I responded, well, tell me, how would someone ruin Yogi? I mean, the cards tell you to do things on yourself, like you draw cards and then you do all that. And if someone's drawing cards, you could shout at them, I guess, or you go to like the fourth level of jerkishness. I guess let's call them the fourth level of like you have to be an absolute jerk to be like, okay, or if someone's saying, oh, this card says one finger touching nose, and so I'm going to now touch the nose of this other person or of the drawing. And there is an implicit rule within the cards that it is an actual nose, not a drawing of a nose. I saw out of hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of games I've seen, like one person said, oh, I just want, because I'm playtesting this, because I'm playtesting a brand new version of Yogi Party, which is not a real game yet. Well, it's a real game in that you can play it, but it's not a published game yet. I'm going to pitch it. Anyway, so someone says, I'm playtesting this, so I'm going to draw the thing and I'm going to put the card touching their thing. And then they said, look, I'm just doing this for the sake of testing. And at the end of the game, they said, yeah, I would actually never do this if it wasn't a playtest. And I said, play as if you were playing normally. And then Mandela said, yeah, I'm not. I would just tell you that's not an actual nose. And so there's a reason that I felt obliged to put in the extra rules for calling the whistle on the wild cards, because sure, those wild cards are incredibly fragile. If you go to Yogi Guru, or indeed back in the day when I did my own expansions, you get wild cards where someone can say, okay, one finger touching that tree 10 miles that distance, or one finger touching fanboy free. You need to go like that's, I don't know how many miles away that is, but on you go. And then someone blows the whistle and says, hey, I think this is literally impossible. You show me how it can be done. And then either the whistleblower automatically loses because the other person manages to show how it's possible to do all those things and draw the next card, or the person who gave them the instruction loses because they aren't able to do it. And this isn't something that I've ever, I think it's once that where I actually we were playing Yogi, well, back when it was the Binds and the Binds expansions for money. The point is, think about these people. Think about people who are actually playing to win. Because you can't just say, oh, it should be difficult but never impossible. What does that mean? How do you measure that? Is that just does that mean impossible for me? Does that mean impossible for you? Because yeah, if someone is a contortionist, sure, they deserve to win. Now, the key thing is putting yourself into the mindset of someone who is just playing to win. And this is where game theory comes in. Like economics, game theory assumes that we are all machines, bereft of emotion, and our only motivation is to win, to maximize our money. Of course, that's not true. Of course, when people are really playing any of these financial games, they behave in irrational ways because we are not bereft of emotion. We do care about other people. But at the same time, within the magic circle, if we've got 10 turns and there's the typical winning score is 27, and then you go through lots of hoops and then you think about what to do, but then maybe there's one action that gives you 3 points every time you do it. It's meant to be a backup, but if I'm going to win just by doing this boring action, then I consider that a badly made game. Because yes, the game is telling me, hey, when I step in, if there is a winner, personally, this is me, I personally assume that within the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, 12 hours, however long the game takes, if this game says there will be a winner, I assume that I am trying to win. So, of course, if the expected return is better for the boring action, I'm going to do that. Now, that feels like a really big thing, and in that situation, you'd probably lower the points return from the boring action and just make it, okay, you get 1 point or 2. The key thing is think about what is fun and make sure people are incentivized to do the fun thing. Let's imagine hypothetically there was a game with a timer in it, and the timer isn't for you personally, but the timer is for everyone. How does that change my behavior? Well, if I'm winning, if I've got the highest score, then I guess I could just say, well, I don't know what to do. Well, I need a couple of minutes to think about this. Oh, what? There's only a couple of minutes left on the timer? Fancy that. And sure, that's a jerk move. And that's, if a typical turn is 10, 20 seconds and I literally sit there for a couple of minutes or even more, that's clearly me just being a jerk. But then there's the bits in the middle. How do you regulate that? And so in reality, because it wasn't such a hypothetical situation after all, but I don't want to name names, in that situation, I felt intensely uncomfortable because not all the decisions were clear. And sometimes I was thinking, okay, there's actually a lot going on here. And to not be a jerk to my friends, I want to make that decision reasonably quickly. And because there's a timer, there's even more reason to not be a jerk to make that decision quickly. But if I'm playing to win, A, I want to make the correct decision, and B, if there's a timer running out I am currently in the lead, which I was, then both those things are pushing me to actually think about this decision carefully to make sure that if I'm allowing everyone else to have a turn, then I am actually giving myself the best chance. And why would you have a timer for everyone? What does that do? Now, here, I mentioned this in a Discord channel in the place, which is a lovely thing. And if you're a lovely person, then send me a link if you're not familiar with the place. And someone talked about social rules versus written rules. So, as a game player, I consider the written rules the key thing. Those are the rules that I will abide by. But the social rules, hey, I'm allowed to lie. I am allowed to deceive you. I am allowed to talk about things and maybe even give you bad advice. I will try to, pass a clear divide between real life and within this game space. So when the game's, if someone's learning the game, or if they don't know me, I might give them bad advice at some point tonight. When the first time I do that, I will say, by the way, I might be giving you bad advice because I think you understand the game at this point. If you actually want good advice as a human, then let me know and I'll give you good advice. But at this point, going forwards, I'm just going to give you, don't listen to me, I might be lying, or I might be giving, and I try to keep that separation between real life, because entering into this magic circle, we leave those social norms behind. As I say, normally I don't get to lie to people and feel okay with it. I don't feel okay going back on my words. I don't feel okay backstabbing. I don't feel okay pulling something out of someone's hands. But we've agreed that this is the world that we live in for the next however long this game takes. And that's me. But then there are some people who say, well, this rule isn't working for us. Let's house rule it. It doesn't really matter. Oh, well, have we enjoyed a good game? Yeah, let's stop playing at this point. And people are happy to abandon games, believing that the social norms are the stronger rules. So which one do you prioritize? And that's probably going to be my question of the day for you. Which one do you prioritize more? Do you consider the written rules of the game to be more set in stone? Or do you consider the social norms to be more set in stone? I am curious to hear where you stand on this. And, okay, it's stretching time. But, yeah, that's the thing. What is a rule adding to your game? If there is some fragility, you need to check where does the fragility come from and what is that adding to the game. So in the case of a game about whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after some makes noises, the key point is that I wanted to incentivize the best noises possible. It's more fun if people make really good noises so everyone can understand their noises. So if the majority is correct, the noisemaker gets a point. And I really like the Chris Bromley house rule, where if everyone is correct, noisemaker gets 2 points. Although I think that only really works in the highest player counts. So maybe 6 players or more. If everyone's correct, you heard, feel free to consider it's an official variant. Winner, you get 2 points if you manage to get 5 or more people correctly identifying the creature. Now, when it started, I was thinking about Dixit-style scoring, but that doesn't work because in Dixit, the whole tension is, well, with your words, you could describe this perfectly. I could say, well, it's a card with a child holding a balloon, except the balloon appears to be a large teddy bear and the teddy bear has a house on its head. No one's going to get that wrong. Everyone's going to get it correct. So the whole point is that Dixit incentivizes you to give these interesting clues because that is the most interesting behavior. Incentivize interesting behavior, to, again, quote Gil Hova. That is the key thing. What is interesting in that game? Being super clear is not interesting. But when you're giving a noise, being super clear is the interesting thing, because it would be so easy. Like, how easy is it for me to codify a language where, sure, I can make a number of noises appropriate to the number of mouths. I'll squawk and be more birdly when it's got a beak. I'll be more versus depending on the mouth shape. But the interesting thing is actually thinking about these things and replicating them. So the most interesting thing is if someone makes a really, really good noise, and that's what I want to. And I want to take a side note that I was thinking, okay, would 3 players work? Once the Kickstarter for it did very well, I must say. I was like, okay, I'm going to try some variations, 3 players. How does that work? And I was cycling down about an hour of pondering, okay, if someone is playing to win, what happens? Well, if someone is correct, they get a point. If there's a majority, they get a point. With 5 players, let's say I made a random noise that has no relation to anything and people chose randomly, then there's like 1 in 5 chance of them being the same, and there's 1 in 5 chance of one person being correct, or 4/5 squared, which is 16/25, 1 minus that, 9/25 chance that someone will be correct. And so with that 9/25, and I hope that so it's a bit more than a third, and I'm thinking, if I'm not confident that I'm going to get both people to be correct, well then my incentive is just to make the worst possible noise. So how can I change that? Well, by going down to 4 creatures, there's now 1 in 4 chance of them being the same person, or there's 3/4 of the first person being wrong, 3/4 of the next person being wrong, so 9/16 of both of them being wrong, and that means that there's 7/16, or almost 50%. And with the chance of them being the same, it means that there's more than half a chance of them getting points if you make a terrible noise. So basically, you want to make a good noise. That bringing it down to 4, bringing out down to 4 creatures means that once again, playing to win, you are still incentivized to do the fun thing. And that's an example of, hey, making a small shift. It made it more interesting. And that's a problem that, sure, it might never happen in your games. And that's why there's extra cards. I say, hey, if you're having fun, if you want to make it more difficult, add in extra cards. With 3 players, sure. If everyone's then motivated to make good noises, but if people are getting it wrong a lot of the time, go back down to the minimum. And this is the key thing. Think about it. Think about what people would do. Disregard what you assume. Disregard what people are inspired to do by the name or by the fun thing. Just think about how people get points. How can I maximize my points relative to everyone else? In a strategic game, could I just deny you? Could I just break up your strategy once I've got 1 single point and make sure that you get literally nothing? Because in a 2-player game, that's clearly going to be what I do. It's all about that relative value. And here's the disclaimer. If you can make a game more robust, always do it, as long as it doesn't lessen the game's spark. Because, sure, sometimes you'll say, this game, it works beautifully, and sure, someone could do this, but there's no way to design around that. But just please make sure that you've examined it. That's basically my whole show for today. If you've got any questions, then please get them in the next few minutes. Otherwise, my question for you, as I said, question of the day. Here's a little question before we go on our way. My question for you is, firstly, is basically, how much would you say you play to win? Do you always try to win? Do you always do you sometimes set little hidden rules for yourself? And do you feel like which do you feel like you are able to let social norms behind? Do you typically do you lie in games? If there was something that was less fun but was clearly the way to win, would you do that? And would that turn you off the game? That's basically what I'm asking. Over to you. What you're up to, you can share button if you want to. Today I'm going to finish the little bits of curry that remains as a strange breakfast. I'm going to wander along to Buzz and Meeples, check them out, go to Fanboy Free, and I'm excited to check them out, chat to people, and maybe head back to London. Well, I say maybe. I'm going to head back to London tonight, and that's it. It's going to be a long weekend for me. If there's anything you want to share, anything that you're up to, anything that you need to do, I promise that I care. Oh, speaking of which, I had someone suggested, I mean, they didn't actually suggest it, but someone inspired me yesterday to write a children's book with cute comical creatures in it. I wonder what you think of that. Yeah, like the children's book would be about how they're all different, but then they all get together to have a party. That's the entire book. Recap and wrap up before we finish up. So to recap and wrap up, think about how people will play your game, but also think about how hypothetical people will play your game. That desire to win and do nothing else should be something that you're able to understand. Research game theory. If you learning game theory does make you a better game developer, I believe. I'm not sure it makes you a better game designer, but the truth is that so many designers end up self-publishing and being their own developer, and that's when you get games that could be just a wee bit better if only did. But yeah, think about that absolute, I care about literally nothing but how to win. What will those people do? Of course, if you want to check me out, check out Stuff by Bez. And at all the places, stuffbybez.com/streams will tell you what the future streams are all about. And Jay Foolsguard says, I have to do some admin stuff that's had put off and then some design work. Well, all the best with the admin stuff and hope it goes quickly and I hope you enjoy your designing. Have a lovely day. For now, share, spread the word. If you think that this was useful, then please let other people know about it. If you've got any questions, then please feel free to ask me questions and I will potentially answer them on a future show. Actually, I'm going to say, if you send me a question, yeah, stuffbybez@gmail.com if you want my email, then I'll definitely get to it on a future show. Thank you, everyone. Lots of love. And for now, the only thing I'm going to say is bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye, bye-bye, bye-bye. Bye-bye. Not London, is Manchester.